Libya has dismissed its central bank governor amidst rising tensions in the North African country. The Presidential Council of Libya sacked the highly influential governor of the central bank, Sadiq al-Kabir, late night on August 19. Al-Kabir had been in office since October 2011. This latest development lends credibility to political analysts' warnings that Libya is headed towards a fresh civil war. Libya, the oil-rich nation of 7 million, has been in the throes of conflict since the US-backed coup dethroned the military general, Muammar Gaddafi, in 2011. Divided between two governments, one in the capital Tripoli and the other in the eastern city of Benghazi, the country has not known stability in over a decade. How did Libya get here? Let's rewind a bit. The year is 2011. The Arab Spring is in full swing in the Middle East and North Africa. It has swept across Egypt and Tunisia, and is making headway in Libya. The country has been ruled by the military dictator, General Muammar Gaddafi, for 40 years. Protests break out in the eastern city of Benghazi, and within weeks the whole country is caught in the middle of a historic uprising for democracy. Gaddafi tries using force, but NATO steps in, and with its help, the rebels overthrow and then kill the dictator. Now that Gaddafi is out of the picture, the Libyan people are eagerly awaiting a peaceful slide into democracy. But that never happened. Libya plunged into chaos right after Gaddafi's downfall. Too many political factions and militias had emerged out of the revolution. And they did not necessarily see eye to eye on the formation of the new government. Although the National Transitional Council, NTC, which had led the revolution against Gaddafi, managed to set up a government by November, their power remained contested in Libya. Several local militias, which had fought autonomously during the revolution, refused to submit to NTC's authority. The General National Congress, GNC, which succeeded NTC after the elections of 2012, did not fare well with the armed groups as well. But by then, the spillover from the Syrian civil war had heightened the stakes. Islamist fundamentalist groups like al-Qaeda had made inroads in the country. Khalifa Haftar, a retired military officer who had served in top positions in the Libyan National Army, LNA, during and after Gaddafi's regime, was especially unhappy with the way GNC dealt with the situation. So, after GNC refused to give up power after its term came to an end in 2014, Haftar executed a coup to force GNC out of power. Fresh elections were held in Libya. Khalifa Haftar had formed a new legislative body, the House of Representatives, that was to replace the GNC. But GNC-backed groups would not let Haftar take Tripoli. The ensuing violence resulted in another civil war. Both sides, the General National Congress and Haftar's House of Representatives, fought for legitimacy and control in Libya with their own militias and areas of influence. GNC was largely based in Tripoli while Khalifa Haftar's forces exerted control in eastern Libya. In 2015, a UN-backed government, the Government of National Accord or GNA, was set up in Tripoli, but it was not recognized by the eastern actors. So, as of now there are effectively two governments in Libya with a host of competing local players. Each has its own parliament, militias, and ties to the central bank. Both sides are supported by different foreign governments and groups. Let's map out the role of the foreign powers involved in the conflict. As the United Nations struggle to find a unified solution to the political crisis in Libya for a decade, players with contrasting interests like Turkey, Russia, UAE, Egypt, France, and the US propped up proxies across Libya. For international powers, three factors define their interest in the Libyan conflict: security, strategic interests, and oil resources. Let's talk stability first. The Libyan National Army, or the LNA, which was part of the unified Libyan military forces till Khalifa Haftar's war against GNC in 2015, is overtly supported by Russia, UAE, and France. Egypt has supported and funded Haftar's forces since 2016, facilitating his ascent to power in the east. The support is lended under the pretext of fighting the jihadist insurgency in Libya. The Muslim Brotherhood, which was banned in Egypt in 2013, has increased its activities in Libya since 2011, and the Egyptian government wants to contain the threat. The US has conducted some 550 strikes against ISIS in Libya since the 2011 intervention till 2020. France has tried its best to forestall the rise of Islamist factions in Libya. Turkey, on the other hand, has held a very controversial position. It entered the conflict for strategic reasons of eventually extending its power in the region through Muslim Brotherhood. The Libyan faction of Muslim Brotherhood makes up a big part of the Tripoli-based government. In its bid to secure its maritime borders and extend influence in the eastern Mediterranean, Turkey has supplied the GNA with arms despite the arms embargo in Libya by the UN. France has at multiple times accused Turkey of aggravating the situation in Libya. And yet, extremism is not the only concern keeping these countries pegged to Libya. Russia's involvement in Libya springs out of its objective to challenge Western hegemony in Africa and the Middle East. Through the Wagner Group, a paramilitary organization with close ties to the Kremlin, Russia has strategically increased its presence in various parts of the country, using Libya as a staging ground for broader operations across Africa. With Moscow's backing, forces aligned with Khalifa Haftar have gained a significant edge in the ongoing conflict, raising the stakes for all involved. On the flip side, the US is stocking up efforts to curb the Russian influence through backing Haftar's rival, the GNA. While the US and Russia compete for strategic control of Libya, Europe is fighting on another front. The European nations are scrambling to safeguard their shores from the influx of migrants, who have arrived in large numbers over the decades, fleeing war, famine, and other crises. Libya is the springboard for immigrants who want to reach European shores. Italy and Greece receive the bulk of these refugees. Italian officials allege that France has not emerged out of its colonial hangover, and that by hindering the economic development of African states, France is contributing to the migration crisis in Libya. Last year, French President Macron accused Italy of failing to take in migrants, while Italy countered by accusing France of secretly escorting migrants back across the border into Italian territory. Greece and Cyprus have similarly raised concerns over France's support of Haftar, whose forces blew up 2 migrant detention centers in 2019. Now, to the most irresistible of Libya's charms, to the Western powers, oil. Libya under Gaddafi was the biggest supporter of crude oil to France. Experts believe that by Paris reasoning, a strong man like Haftar could bring back those good old days. And that is not too far-fetched an idea. France has had a sordid history of appropriating African resources, but so does Italy. Libya remained an Italian colony for 32 years. Libyan oil production reached 1.2 million barrels per day in April 2024, up from 1 million barrels per day in January this year. Libya had been the second highest supplier of oil to Italy prior to the Russia-Ukraine war. Last year, Eni, the Italian energy corporation, signed a historic deal worth $8 million with Libya to boost the gas supply to Europe. An estranged Libya therefore might not be in Italy's best interests. Similarly, Turkey's support for the GNA is backed by its economic interests. Since 1972, Turkish firms have signed $40 billion worth contracts in the Libyan construction industry. The Turks are also looking to shore up their economy following the post-pandemic slump. As for the US, it has had its eyes set on Libyan oil since its discovery in 1959. The US-backed coup that displaced Gaddafi was in fact a realization of its oil interests. Gaddafi had made the mistake of nationalizing the American-owned oil companies of Libya. Oil is also at the heart of the ongoing national power struggle. Haftar-aligned politicians assert that the central bank primarily allocates oil revenues to the rival UN-recognized government in Tripoli, despite the fact that most of the oil is extracted from fields located in the eastern part of the country. And hence, the removal of Sadiq al-Kabir, who was deemed loyal to the House of Representatives in Benghazi. As powerful forces, both within and beyond Libya's borders, wrestle for control, ordinary Libyans cling to the hope that peace and stability will one day return to their lives.